and welcome to a special edition of Biddle, the Europe edition for all the people that can't make the regular edition. How's everybody doing?
Hello.
Awesome.
Doing really well.
Great.
This is Biddle for the Europe edition for Saturday, March 14th, and we are officially open for business.
Yay.
business. You know it.
Yeah.
Woohoo.
All right. So first off, I want to say thank you to the guys that filled in last week. They did a tremendous job filling in for me because I surely wasn't up to it. So Eric, Dan, Bill, I appreciate it.
Wasn't the same without you, that's for sure.
It definitely wasn't.
Aw.
Yeah.
Well,
And I'm glad you're feeling better.
well, you're going to have to pick up for
Yes.
me maybe during a coughing fit. But other than that, I think we'll make it through the show.
All right.
Awesome.
So this week, last week, we decided to forego the Thomas random generator thingy, and we decided to pick Arco Linux for a distro challenge. And I wanted to give everybody who wants to talk about Arco for this show, because I know we will talk about it for the regular show at 8. But anybody that wants to talk about their experience with Arco, you're more than willing to talk about it now. And I'm hoping to see Eric Dubois show up and maybe get his view on what Arco is accomplishing and where it's going and what's all happening with it. So, Dan, did you get a chance to try it?
I did. I actually did the deep in version, and I had a good week. It was really a lot of fun. I think the implementation is done very well. It's kind of a I don't know. It's a desktop environment that doesn't get a lot of attention everywhere, so it's fun to try that sort of thing out. So I had a good week. Arch backend is not always the friendliest if you're going to do it long term, but obviously in the little short time that we try things, things rarely break, so that's always good. And the availability of just about any software you want is there for you, so that's pretty great as well. The installer goes really smooth. It's Calamares, so that's pretty nice. You have a great selection right in the installer of just about any software that you could possibly want as well. So they've done the package chooser portion of that, I think, pretty well. It could be a little overwhelming because there is a lot of selection there. So, trying to choose what you want right out of the gate might be a little overwhelming, but you can just not install hardly anything and go pretty minimal and install it later, I suppose. So that's always an option.
Yep.
Good experience overall.
Well, I installed it on the test machine this past week, and I had only one problem with it. So the installer went great. I booted into it, and then when I went to do the first update, the update manager hung basically, and just it stopped at, I forget, like 80%, and then just sat there. And it sat there for, 2 hours. I let it sit there just to make sure that it wasn't anything going on. And if I finally decided to shut the machine off, turn it back on, and everything was fine. Did the updates, and I had no issues. So not sure what that little glitch was about. But I did go with the regular edition that has the XFCE open box and i3 on it. And I was excited kind of to try the i3. And, i3 is one of those things that if you don't keep up with it in your mind, at least for me, I can't remember all the shortcuts. And it does have a conky on the desktop talking about the shortcuts, showing you what they are. But it just felt like I love the idea of i3. I just am not keeping up with it to remembering the shortcuts to be able to use it in a good way. So I logged into the OpenBox session, and I also logged into the XFC session for a while, trying all the different pieces and things. And high DPI is there, but obviously with XFCE and OpenBox, it's not quite all the way there with everything. So like the Windows will resize, and the menu will resize, the panel will resize. Although in OpenBox, maybe that's a feature. I don't know. It doesn't resize at all. It doesn't scale. But the title bars are the only thing that does not scale for high DPI. So everything's great, big, except the title bars and the close button are like super tiny.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not an Arco Linux thing. I think that's a XFCE and OpenBox thing. And there probably is, or I would hope that there's a workaround for it. I just didn't dig hard enough to find it. But overall, it's great. It's got a lot of tools in it. Does anybody know what the Kvantum manager is for? Like,
It's
a theme manager.
It is
obviously.
a theme manager, typically for your Qt environment. So I don't know what you would use it for in the GTK realm of things.
Right.
Manjaro. Yeah, go ahead, Bill.
Manjaro ships that too with their GTK desktops.
But we don't know like what exactly it affects or like
Qt apps. Yeah. So
Yeah.
if like, let's say VirtualBox or something like that, if you install that on a Manjaro distribution, then it will give you, it has a separate control panel for Kvantum, and it has its own theming and its own controls for all of that. Yeah.
Okay. Dig it. All right. Bill, sir.
So this week there's been a lot going on, and I haven't used it this week, but I have used it. And the one thing I want to point out, it's a lot like the Arch Wiki in a way. He has so many videos that are applicable to almost any distro you're using. So he has videos on how to set up Plank, videos setting up almost anything. The amount of information that is available, that he has made available, is absolutely incredible. I just wanted to make sure people are aware it's not just another Arch distro. There's a whole back end of support that he has created for it that's applicable to so many different things. And that is incredible.
Yep. I agree. There is a ton of content on his channel. I mean, every single day he's put out videos, it seems like. Not sure what the count is up to right now, but it was like over 1,300 videos or something like that for anything and everything to have to do with, obviously Arco, but also applicable to Arch installs and everything else. So yeah, that's an amazing amount of work. Can be daunting at times to, because there is so much information there in the channel, but you pretty much can find everything there.
Well, what's great too is it's not just like you said, it's Arch, it's everything, and it's tips on how to use your system and set things up and desktop environments, and it's everything. So yeah, it's Arco specific, but he has so much out there.
All right, cool. Dig it. Eric, you want to? Did you get a chance to try Arco? You want to go?
Yeah, I have, and I've used it in the past as well. So I grabbed, I want to say B, I think. I tried it right after the show, and now I'm trying to remember. So, it's great. It has the Calamares installer. It's an easy way to get Arch installed on your system. And then the tools that he has built in make it, easier to configure and do the administrative tasks. And to me, really, it's not so much about any one specific application of Arco. It's the fact that it is intended to be a learning experience. And I really like the way that he that's really what his goal, right? That's what he's trying to do. Yes, there is a way to just run a full-fledged distribution with a lot of pre-installed software, pre-configured desktop, all of that stuff. But ultimately, I think his goal is to get people to learn Linux in a really fundamental way, not just download an ISO, install it, and then maybe tweak some things. It's what are the nuts and bolts? How does this stuff work? And from that perspective, it's just an amazing resource. When I started using it, I was already pretty familiar with Arch. So from that perspective, I wasn't learning so much the fundamentals, but he goes into everything beyond all of that. So, yeah, it's really not so much about my experience of using like his prepackaged distribution as it is the resources that he has, the ability to just go through it step by step, and he's so methodical. And I would just think that anyone who is trying to learn Linux, this has to be a really good way to go about that. Silence.
No, it's cool.
So, okay.
Alrighty.
Jill, did you get a chance to try it?
No, unfortunately, I have when it first came out, but I haven't recently. So unfortunately, no. I'm too busy with scale.
When you tried it, did you get that same sense, or what? It's really more, excuse me, more about this isn't just a prepackaged Linux. Like here's a path for you.
Yeah, it was really, really good for definitely for the beginner user, especially to Arch. That was my impression of it. And it ran really well when I had installed it. And this is a couple years ago. So it's been a while.
Gotcha.
But it's probably even better now. So I can't wait to play with it more.
Excellent. Okay.
Mhm.
All right. So EB, did you get a chance to take a look?
Yep, I've done a couple of videos. I've tried both the XFCE and the OpenBox version. I've yet to try the i3 version. This is just off the base Arco Linux ISO. I'd just like to say it's absolutely pants. I've never seen a distro like it. It's terrible. No, I'm joking. Sorry. I'd just like to take a bit of a... I love it when Rocco does that. I'd just like to take a bit of a different tack on it. Yep, I think it's fantastic that Eric has all this information on there and he's done all these awesome videos. The thing I love so much about Arco Linux is actually the OpenBox version is the most complete, out-of-the-box, noob-friendly distro you will ever run in your life, because the whole of OpenBox has been automated by Eric, and it's just astonishing. It's simple, it's elegant, it's fast, and you don't have to edit any config files. You don't have to do anything. You just use it out the box, and it's mind-blowing. Absolutely awesome. So for me, I think Eric's done a fantastic job. Everybody goes on about his YouTube site with all the gazillion videos. Yep, sure, that's fantastic. But he's also done an awesome website with pretty much all that information on as well. So you get the choice. If you're the sort of person who wants to RTFM, go to the website. You can digest it that way, or you can digest it via YouTube. And then, of course, he has his other ISOs where you can have a base Arch install and choose your own desktop, or you can build your own ISO. So overall, for me, it's a fantastic distro. I think it's one of the probably top 5 distros available today, because you can either treat it as an out-of-the-box install and go, or you can treat it as entry into the Arch University of learning Linux. I think it's just win-win. So yeah, for me, massive thumbs up. Awesome.
Well, thank you, EB. Sorry, Eric.
No, go Bill.
I'm trying. So Tony, I know you installed it last week. How were your experiences with it?
Pretty good, actually. I installed 2 versions I've tried on the laptop, the Budgie desktop and the Deepin desktop, and they both run extremely well, and it's quite an impressive distro. The only problem I come up against, I decided to try one of them on the desktop. Deepin installed, but didn't seem to want to work too well. It could just be the desktop that's causing a problem with it. But Budgie would not install. It started to install, and after a short period, it just came up with a box saying the installer has failed. And I tried it 2 or 3 times, and it just wasn't having it. Now, I assume that's probably hardware related, because thinking about it, the other distro, the Deepin one, right at the end of the install, it came up with a little box saying the install had failed, but it actually hadn't, because when I rebooted it, it booted into it and it seemed to run reasonably well, but it did have a few little issues. But on the laptop, they both run perfect. So I don't know.
Well, that's great to hear. I think we have a special guest that's just arrived here.
Eric, how are you?
Can you hear me now?
I can. How are you, sir?
Okay. Fine, thank you. How are you?
Doing excellent. We just happen to be talking about your distro, dude, for some reason. You pop in. Imagine that.
Yep. What a look.
All right. You're more than welcome to. We're going to go through the list of people who tried it, and you're more than welcome to jump in at any time and bring any thoughts. And then after we get to everybody, we will give you the floor and talk about Arco.
No, I've been listening. So.
All right. Eris.
Yes, I tried Arco. I have very weird issues with Arco. As I tried installing it, I kept getting an error, a Python error, several times. Like I tried using the Arco Linux Bs, and I kept getting boost.python error in jobs unpack fs. And I was able to install GNOME, Arco Linux B, I think. And I was also able to install I think it was Mate, yeah. But I tried installing the Arco Linux D and the first one, the one that's just Arco Linux, and I kept getting that error as I tried installing the thing, the distro. I'm not sure why that was happening. I tried installing it by turning off like my internet, and I still got that error. I remember Steve's very own saying that he has an error with calamares. I'm not sure, something like that. I've never gotten this error, but it kept happening to me. But I'm not actually sure why it happened to me. Maybe it's because I have so many partitions. I'm not exactly sure.
All right.
Overall, I didn't get a good chance to try it. I was able to work with GNOME and update it, but I haven't done much with it.
Oh well, that was my question. I didn't hear which version you tried. You tried the GNOME version.
I tried installing the GNOME Linux, the Arco Linux B, the Mate. I was able to install both of them. I also tried installing the i3 one and Plasma. The Plasma was very laggy. I don't know why. That was like, it was hard to set up my displays with that one.
All right. John, sir.
Hey.
You made a biddle, dude. I love it.
Yeah, I know. I sort of, thanks to Alan, I was looking at the Telegram, and he's like, hey, we're on in 15 minutes. I'm like, hey, I'm in virus lockdown here in Atlanta, Georgia, so I might as well join biddle.
Right.
But I did not know that Arco was the distro of choice. I have used it in the past quite a bit. It's been one of my, probably the only Arch Linux distros that I've ever used. I like it quite a bit. I usually tend towards the i3, but due to work, I've been in Ubuntu land for over a year now, so I haven't played with Arch in quite a while, but I will echo some of the other comments that his website is just phenomenal. Matter of fact, I'm on there right now learning some stuff about team-ups, because that's something I've been interested in doing. But yeah, I mean, it's my go-to Arch distro. Highly recommend it. Just haven't used it in a while.
All right. Good stuff. Good to see you, John.
Good to see you.
Allie, how are you, sir? And did you get a chance to try Arco?
Unfortunately not, but I have tried it in the past, and I found it to be one of the great Arch distros of all time. I mean, Eric's a genius on it, to be fair. To reiterate EB about open box version yet, he's done a fantastic job on that. You see your video, EB, and I admit I have taken some pointers off that for my own, album box releases that I do. So excellent. Just Eric, just keep up the good work, man, because you're a superstar in the arts world. You really are, man. No question about it. Anyway, that's my 2 pence worth for today. Enjoy the rest.
All right, thanks. Good to see you. Big Pod, how are you, sir?
I'm great. I didn't try
Okay.
Arco this week because I had other things to do. Mainly, I was preparing myself for the install video of Gentoo. I said I will do, but I did use it in the past quite a lot. I am one of big fans, and I gotta say, it's great, and especially the build yourself your own ISO. I love that he makes it so easy to build your own ISO, and I almost always create my own ISO for installation because I also have a bit of spotty computers, so it helps with that too.
All right. So, Mr. Alan Pope, how are you today, sir?
Hello. Very good, thank you. Sadly, I didn't get to try Arco. I'm very sorry. So
You've been busy. That's okay.
Well, everyone is busy, but I just didn't get time. Sorry about that.
No, that's fine. All right, Paul.
What's happening, Eric?
Not
I
much.
did give Arco a try. It's a great distro. I had already been working on Arch ISO beforehand, so I had a little bit of knowledge going in. But yeah, I just love everything you do, Eric. Yeah, it's great.
Which one did you try, Paul?
The Arco Linux build your own ISO, the Carly stuff.
Okay.
Yeah. And I actually built a little USB when I started one with the XSCE on there. I do like the open box, like eBay was saying, because for some reason, if you Control Alt F2 into another TTY with open box, it works. But with XSCE, you can't start another XSCE. But open box, you can. So, yeah, it's just great. Love everything about it.
All right. Well, and are you an Arch user? I mean, is this something you said you had the Arch ISO before, but did you find
learned Arch a year ago?
Okay.
Before I started out with the Ubuntu's when I joined you guys a year and a half, 2 years almost. But yeah, I worked my way up to Arch, and that's usually what I use is Arch now. Arch with Plasma, of course.
Gotcha. Okay.
Well, Derek, I see that you have arrived as well. Have you tried Arco Linux?
No. Arco, I've never heard of that. No, I've been using Arco forever. I'm actually running Arco Linux on my main production machine. I installed it April of last year, so almost a full year now. So everything I've done on the YouTube channel and everything has been on Arco. My laptops have run several different versions of Arco. I've probably installed at least a dozen of the various Arco flavors in the last couple of years. And because I knew you guys were doing this week, since I haven't done an install lately, I pulled down the Arco Linux B extended ISO, which I'd never used, but that comes with 7 or 8 different window managers pre-installed. Comes with like 6 or 7 tiling window managers plus OpenBox. And I installed that actually on this Toshiba satellite that's running behind me. And it's great. The installer, I love the installer. The installer gives you the option to use gparted, if you want to set up your partitions with gparted or just let Calamares do all the automatic partitioning. I think that's a great option. I love the package selector in the installer. So it lets you choose what browser you want, LibreOffice, if you want an Office suite, it lets you choose what video player and audio player and everything like that right there inside Calamares. And I think that's just brilliant. When you get to the partitioner, I also love the fact that when you choose the erase disk option and it does the automatic partitioning, it does have a little drop-down menu and asks you, do you want a swap partition? You want swap? You want swap with no Hibernate? You want swap with Hibernate? I think that's brilliant. So yeah, I'm a big fan of Arco. Big fan.
Hey, DT, just to let you know, sorry, you're on the wrong mic. You want to take that?
Thank you.
Hey, Derek, I did want to ask you. I know that you switch around a lot on DEs or window managers. Which one do you usually use on Arco?
You're muted.
I use all of them, Rocco.
Okay.
You know, I don't stay on one.
I know you switch around all the time. I just didn't know if there was one that you kind of favored.
I've used all the tiling window managers, and I've used the open box version.
Yeah, I assume you've got to be happy with that selection.
Yeah, because I already install them all anyway. So.
All right. That is our take on Arco Linux. But I still would like to talk to you, Eric, about Arco and what the purpose is and who the target audience is and all of those questions. So let's start out with the goal of Arco Linux. What is the goal of it?
I guess to attract more people to Linux. That's the first main goal. If it's being Arch or Ubuntu, I really don't care. Maybe you've seen the last videos. I've actually told that in 3 of my last videos to think out of the box. Don't limit yourself to a particular distro. It's all Linux. It's based on a kernel and it builds up. It's, well, I call it the Lego box, and Arch Linux feels like that too. It provides us material to play with and we build up things. And just today I've made a new page. You can watch it on arcolinux.info. Under the download, there's a page called spin-offs. So it's great to see that people with the knowledge that I provide, that people can make actually their own ISO, their spin-off from Arco Linux, deciding to put the XFCE toolbar at the top. Why not? With another wallpaper, another themes, other icons, and for a normal user, it says it's a complete different distro, right? It's not. It's still Arco Linux. It's a spin-off, but that's the fun, I think, in Arco Linux, that you can start very small, learn XFCE, run Firefox, go to Facebook, your mail, and then you get triggered by films and videos and posts on social media. Oh, look, there's a new NeoFetch. What can you do? And then yes, I'm sorry to say, but you get addicted to Arco Linux, and you want to know more and more and more. And there is enough to learn. We go from A till Z. We have the Carly project, and I heard somebody, I don't know who it was using the Carly project. That's great, because that's the thing that's starting from Arch Linux, a very, very base Arch ISO application, then build it up. So it's this, I think it's this growth, this path of learning that we want to provide. And people start as very noob, but also come in, well, in the middle somewhere, right? And they learn more and more. I think it's a learning distro.
So Eric, as time's gone on, you know, with that goal, do you adjust things when you get feedback from people? I assume you've had people come to you and, yeah, okay.
All the time. An hour ago, somebody said, wouldn't it be nice to have Tor and an application proxy something, right? To have that included in Arco Linux D as a choice. I said, great, right? Tor is included in April in the Arco Linux D. So input comes from users, and when it's a good input, right, what do you do? 5 minutes later, it's on there.
Well, that's what you do.
Yeah, that's what I do. No, but good ideas, I don't know, they click, right? So you do it, right?
So Eric, I have, first of all, thank you for all your effort and hard work on Arco Linux. It's fantastic. I have the ultimate challenge for you, Eric. I hope you forgive me for saying this. Rocco, great time to start squirming right now. So I believe, Eric, that you live in Belgium. Is this correct?
That's correct.
Okay. So we all know that Belgium isn't a huge, massive country. It's a country, but not massive. I wonder if you could do me a favour. When you have a spare half an hour, could you get in your car, drive over to Sergey's house and force him, to install Gentoo on his PC and also live stream it rather than requesting everybody else do it? It would be fantastic, Eric.
You send me address and I will go there.
Awesome.
So, Eric, you have all of these videos on your channel. I mean, you are basically a teacher in your real life, but you set this up. You set your website up. You set your YouTube channel up like for teaching people how to install Arch. And so, where do you find the time, dude, to put all of these videos out?
I have this watch from Hermeline from Harry Potter. I can go back in time.
No, seriously. You have a huge library of content. Like, everybody marvels at that. Like, do you sleep, dude, or what?
Sometimes. No, it's okay. It's when you have a passion, it doesn't really matter. And well, like I said, it can be addictive. So it sometimes happens that I dream of a solution. I dream of a solution for Arco Linux.
Is it just you?
Wow. No, we have other people, of course. There are other people, but the teacher is me. But I'm starting to get more support. So I want to give more away to the core team. And somebody mentioned there the DMux series, right? The DMux series is not for me. I'll have to follow that too. That's for Marco. Marco is part of the team. He's still in there somewhere at the chat there somewhere. So yeah, I want to delegate more to my core team. That's for sure.
Do you have any interaction with the Arch team themselves? Have you? I'm sure you've found some things.
I have tried to get some interaction, but no, they're a closed community, and I do have some contacts with Manjaro, and they say pretty much the same, that they are closed off, and it's an Arch Linux thing, and the rest are spin-offs or
But I'm sure you've found some things that, that's a shame to hear, unfortunately.
Yeah,
but
it is.
Yeah, go ahead.
Let me ask you. It recently came out that the Arc theme is going to need a maintainer, and I noticed that you use the Arc theme on Arco.
My God!
So, like, are you going to switch themes, maybe, or are you going to maintain the Arc theme yourself for Arco, or what?
That would be very bad news if it stops. That's a great team. I don't know. Things happen, right? Everything changes. At some point in time, there was no maintainer for the Numix package build on AOR. So I took it in, right? So that's now my job to maintain that particular icon theme. But of course, you can't do all the work, right? You can't carry the whole world on your shoulders.
Right.
We'll see.
All right. So what is your favorite feature about Arco Linux that is like somebody installs it? What do you want them to see and notice?
Well, if you omit the last question, what do you want to see and notice? The most important feature for me at this point in time today is the Arco Linux tweak tool. The one we've released today ensures you to install all 15 desktops on whatever ISO you start with. Okay? Every single one of them can be installed on any single system. On Arch Linux, but also on Salient OS, on Arch Linux itself. So that's one of the latest videos. I've made videos about this tool, the Spice tool, we call it. Arco Linux tweak tool and Spice tool go a little bit together. And it makes us possible to jump ship. It makes us possible to jump to any Arch Linux-based system. Hence, don't look at Arco, look at Arch Linux, and then install an application called the Spices tool. You can find it at the website, Arco Linux Info, Applications. Download it, run it, do some stuff, and you can install all the Arco Linux packages. and it will feel like Arco. That's what today is awesome.
Yeah, I was definitely surprised and happy to see that the Calamari's installer. I love that, you know, just have the choice of all of those, and you can just pick whichever one or ones you want, and that just makes it so easy. I mean, the point is that you're learning what's underneath, but in some cases, you just want to get it done, right? I just want to spin up a desktop, and
Yeah,
that makes it
yeah,
so
true.
easy.
Yeah, just click, 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 done, right?
Have you had anyone come back to you? So you say, you know, the community gives feedback. Have you had anyone come back and say, you know, this was the resource I used to learn, and you know, now I'm proficient, and you know, just I guess that kind of. Have you seen evidence that your goal of teaching people it has actually taken hold in some cases?
Yeah. That's a comment I get all the time. By accident, I found you, and I'm so loving it. That's one of the things that they say constantly. And I've put on the website, Arcolinks Info, a link there. How is it called again? Let's have a look. So, blog. Design help. And I keep track of all the nice comments people give us. So we still know, okay, that's why we do it, you know, because indeed you spend a lot of time in it, and people give us some testimonials. That's where it is. So blog, and then third-party testimonials. So people, and that's great, people, please keep giving us this energy, these positive comments. And that's what keeps you going sometimes when you're down or tired and you don't have energy, and you have to do it, right? It becomes a chore from time to time, but it is a passion, it is a hobby. But these comments, and I've copy pasted those, if you can see them on the testimonials, and it gives us energy, basically.
Well, and
So
you do have a community as well, right? You have a forum, and it's pretty active as well.
Yeah.
Is there anything in particular? So you mentioned there are some people that help, but is there anything in particular that you need? Does donations of time, of money, I mean, is there some way for people to get involved or to contribute back?
Yes, of course. Donation is, of course, always well, good to have, and it is also motivating as well. If you see donations coming in, then you're doing something right. That's a conclusion you make subconsciously, right? You know, okay, it's cool. What else do we need? Of course, there is, if you watch the page start here, who, then we have actually a kind of division, a kind of vision. So we have the core members. They will provide more help, and I will delegate more to them. So I get more time, for instance, for Calamaris. That's something I would like to keep. But beta testers is what we need. And when we scroll down there, so a lot of beta testers. The revision team, I'm very glad with my revision team. Those people just read my texts. I'm a Dutch, I'm Flemish, right? So I speak English, right? But if you write English, often I say, yeah, that's the correct phrase. That's how to put it, right? So those English native speakers are changing my text, basically. And the last point on that same page is the Arcolinks content creation team. That would be great if other people start bringing content to learn specific things that I don't know. There's so much I don't know, really. So fill in the gaps. Like, I'm not a gamer, right? So I've tried to attract people, say, play games on Arcolinks, record them, put them on Twitch, on YouTube, and then we can get a playlist. So take a look here, take a look there, because often they have these specific questions. Can I play this on, right? And how is it working on an NVIDIA 390, etc. All these technical things, I cannot know that because I'm not a gamer at all. So stuff like that.
Got it. I've seen a lot of comments in the chat as I scroll down through here on the YouTube chat, praising the tools that you've included for, they're mentioning the tweak tool and some of the others. And I think that's it's just an area where I think Arch themselves, obviously they're not interested in providing those kind of tools. So it's good to see, and that was my experience as well, that it's everything that is great about Arch, but then you've made it that much easier to use. So I'm happy to see all this feedback in the chat here.
Yep.
So you're obviously doing good things, and people appreciate it. So that's always a good sign. And like you said, to get good feedback and have that motivation. So I know it's
That's
not
my
always
energy.
easy. Yeah.
And Eric, to add to what I said earlier, I was remembering because I just found some of my old screenshots. Is I loved your implementation of the Awesome Desktop. You did a really nice job with all the theming and the wallpapers. It was beautiful. So that was my
Well,
first
thank you,
time.
Bennett.
Yeah, it was the
Ah, yeah.
first time I had used Arco Linux. Was just I installed the Awesome Desktop, and that was awesome.
Well, all the credit actually goes to Nick, so one of our core members.
Oh, cool.
Ah. Thank you, Nick.
Yeah, very good. Because no one had really talked about the theming of Arco, and I thought that
Yeah.
was one of the things that stands out. Definitely, it's beautiful.
Well, thank you.
Yep. There along in those videos are tons of different videos about the themes themselves, the icons themselves, where you can, change the colors of them and all of this stuff. It's just, there's a whole library of stuff. So, any other
the visual
questions?
aspect? Yeah, the visual aspect is important. That's one of the things, of course, that I want for every desktop. It needs to look good. Well, awesome to say the words.
Right.
On every desktop, and we have still ideas with DWM, with GWM, with Spectre WM. I mean, I think we ran out of desktops and we need to go to tiling window managers. But it's fun, and we'll take our time to explore these new tiling window managers. I become first a noob. It's a great feeling to be noob again on a system that you never tried. So that's cool.
Yep.
I will bring up the gaming thing later on the next biddle, because I'm assuming some people have at least tried some games on it. And if that's something that would be helpful to you to have people creating content around that, I'll just mention it and see if anyone can jump in on that.
I think we have about 5 videos, so we can get more.
Any other questions for Eric about Arco Linux? All right. Well, Eric, I really appreciate you stopping by, coming here and joining us and talking about Arco. Is there anything else you want to let us know about Arco?
Yes, I've written down some remarks, and of course, I would just want to point out, and everybody probably knows, but maybe not all the viewers, that Calamares is a free installer. It's coming from github.com Calamares, and it's improving all the time. And I have a great contact with Adrian. He's one of the developers. He was in Brussels. We went to see each other. We networked a little bit. We saw also Philip from Manjaro there. So that's great that we are getting to know the Linux community, let's say. And because of the good connection, lots of things that I request are cutting in there. Like next release, we'll have the net module, or that's a module inside Calamares, where you select all these applications. We'll have now separate screens, so more educational, because of course that's my idea, right? Give people an easy feel of, okay, now I need to choose the kernel, then I'm gonna choose services, now is the display manager, now the desktop, now all the applications. That's possible now because of my request. So that's great that there's a connection with Calamares. And yes, from time to time, we get this error Python thing, and then you read the message and say, what? And you try to figure out what it is. But I always say, if you want to improve Calamares, you have to put in time. So if you see an error, report it on the GitHub, because, well, every bit of hardware out there is different. And I think it's for Adrian, that's the name, it's going to be a huge task to be able to work something out that works on every single laptop out there or desktop out there. But we'll get there. It's a big change already. 2 years ago, Calamares was totally different than now, right? So it's always improving.
That's something I hear sometimes is, the fragmentation in Linux, and there's so many different distros. But I think this is a good example of you've taken an upstream tool, you're using it for your purposes, and I'm sure this happens with more than just Calamares, that you adapt it, you find some way to either you find a bug and you report it. So the work that you do benefits everyone who's using Calamares and everything else.
Yes, and I would ask everybody to jump in and report issues. This is what happened. And they'll say, I need this or I need that. Give me more information. They'll respond.
All right. Well, anything else you want to add, Eric?
Well, the next release will be awful. Awesome. Well, there is a new Calamares coming on, so 3.20. You'll see it's gonna be completely different in Arco XD. That's maybe the last thing I would like to end with. That's the Arco XD. In my eyes, in my heart, better. In my heart, it feels like that's gonna be an awesome selling point, an awesome selling distro or ISO. And because of the new Calamares, because of the build-up, but also because of the freedom you get there. You get anything is possible. You get this feeling that, what, I can choose between all that, all these goodies. And that's what attracts me today in Arco XD, this choice of all these Lego blocks. And that's what I want to end with.
Very nice. Very nice. When is the release coming out?
Well, this one is for mid-April. All right. If health permits, we have to say now these days.
Yeah, you know that. All right. Well, again, I really appreciate you stopping by, and you're more than welcome to stick around for the next hour.
Yes.
Just chat about Linux.
I'll stick around.
All right. But I do want to thank you and everybody on the team for all of the work that you guys put into it, because it is a tremendous amount of work that you put in. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, that's true. Thanks.
All right. So that is our take on Arco Linux. We will probably talk about it again at 8 and maybe a little bit shorter. I don't know. But we will definitely talk about it again at 8 o'clock tonight for the next biddle. But we're going to move on. So I will open it up to the floor to you guys. I have, one or two things I want to bring up, but does anybody have anything they want to bring up to start off the conversation?
I do.
Do it.
And the only reason I hesitate is because I think I could probably spend the rest of the show talking about it. But I've been using Ubuntu 20.04 and enjoying it just tremendously. And I know I gush sometimes because I've enjoyed Ubuntu so much over the years. But this release really, it's just the polish and the fact that this is an LTS is really amazing to me. And we're not done yet. There's still lots of work to do, as I'm sure Wimpy and Alan will tell you. But just using it day to day, and I've been just using it here plugged in, and I've been on the road, and it's been great. I've had a couple things happen, of course. It just is what it is, but nothing that was too difficult to deal with. And really the new improvements in GNOME and the theming, just all of it is so solid, well thought out, well put together. And I'm just really enjoying it. And I would like to just invite anyone who hasn't tried it to try it. And now is a good time to, because if you find things, they can get back to the team and they can fix things. So it's been stable enough for me to use day to day. I'm not asking anyone to put it on a production system that they would feel uncomfortable doing that. But if you want to test and give feedback, now is, I think, a good time to do that.
I was going to bring up along the Ubuntu line that Alan Pope has been putting out some amazing videos on YouTube. So if you haven't had a chance to see him, go check out his channel. There's a lot of good stuff there.
Thank you.
Yep. Been talking about bugs, been talking about ISO tests, been talking about all kinds of stuff. Wimpy, how are you, sir? I'm sorry, Alan.
It's all right. I was just going to say I found it surprisingly fun to make those videos. Just like turn the camera on at lunchtime, start recording, stop after half an hour, and then publish it. Done.
I still don't know how you get it done in that time.
I
Just
don't
saying.
edit. That's it. I just only one of them I edited, the one that went out on yesterday, and I had to edit that because it had a compile step in it that took like 20 minutes. So I was like, I have to cut that out. Nobody's going to sit and stare at compile.
Video editing is bloat.
Right?
Sorry, Alan. I thought you said you started making them about 3:30 in the afternoon, finished at 7, then took the wife shopping. Sorry, where was I?
No, lunchtime. It's a nice, pleasant way to spend my lunch. Although one of them I did like 9 in the morning or something like that, but because I just had the need. But yeah, thank you, John.
So Wimpy has joined us. How are you doing?
Good evening. I'm very well. How's everyone?
Fine, thank you. So you've been busy.
I think you're on the wrong mic, Martin.
I think you are on the wrong mic.
Mm-hmm.
Derek, are you on the right
How's
mic
that?
now?
Is that better?
He is.
Yes.
I have no idea. I couldn't
Yes, you are.
to work with either Pulse or Jack before. I rebooted the machine and it picks it up now. I don't know. Reboot
don't
always.
These audio noobs, Rocco, what are you going to do?
I'm telling you, dude. I never have these problems, ever.
No.
So, Wimpy, how are you, sir?
Yeah, very well, thank you. Squeaky bum time. We're a month away from release candidate for 2004. So, as you've been discussing, now's the time to corral the community and get some testing done. And Popey's been doing a sterling job of explaining to people how they can contribute at a grassroots level to really impact the quality of the next release.
Well, you've also been putting out live streams yourself, too.
Yeah, again, inspired by Alan there. So he made a very good point. He explained to me, well, most evenings I'm sat here, doing something for Debian, Ubuntu Mate, or other Linuxy related stuff. And he said, you should just live stream that. Maybe people will find some value in you doing that. So that's what I've been doing. Last night's was good fun. That was a bit of a deep dive. So if there's anyone watching or here who cares about Steam, FFmpeg, OBS, or NVENC, then I did a big deep dive into that and how I've been working on all of those things for 2004 in order to improve them.
Well, I really enjoyed. I was only able to make the one out of the 2 or 3 maybe you've done already, and I totally enjoyed that. That was a great time. There were so many good people in the chat, and being able to see what you do live opens up things, dude. So I would definitely tell you to keep on.
Yeah, I will keep that up. I mean, like I say, I spend an inordinate amount of time sat in front of the computer of an evening. I've just finished feeding the family. They're now, closing down. So here I am. And a bit later on, I'll be thinking to myself, well, what am I going to do this evening? And I will turn the camera on and I will live stream it. But last night we went into the whole relationship with, what does the Debian upstream and the Ubuntu downstream mean? So I actually demonstrated that through code. I actually demonstrated how I benefited from that relationship from Debian, and then where I did some work in Ubuntu and I needed to send that back to Debian. So I actually went through that process. For Steam, in fact, I was working on Steam at the time. So it's unscripted, unrehearsed. It's a little bit rough around the edges, but hopefully it's of value to someone. And I'm really hoping that maybe people will see this stuff really isn't that hard. If I can do it, certainly there are plenty of other people who could do the same, probably better than me. And it may just encourage them to take the next step on their Linux journey and get involved, contributing to, a distribution.
I know personally for me, seeing someone do it, so I can read all the tutorials in the world, but seeing someone do it is really valuable. So you may not think that those streams are either interesting or, I don't know, informative, but they really are. They really are.
Yep.
I'm doing just general, like, when I say testing, I'm just using it day to day. I'm not doing the unit tests and things like that. I will when we get to that point. Is there any particular area of focus for people? Is there something that you find that as you go through the release cycles that just is a miss in some cases, where it's like, I wish we had someone with either this kind of hardware or using it in this use case or something like that?
Yes. So where obviously, sort of Apple have some advantage in that they define the hardware platform and the software platform. So they are in control of all of the moving parts, where Linux and Windows to some extent as well, although they are in a similar position to us. We just have to make it work on everything. And that's kind of a tall order because we have smaller engineering resources than either Microsoft or Apple. So where people can really help is testing in a VM is fine for validating that the software behaves correctly. But what you can't get through testing in a VM is does this generation of NVIDIA card work with the drivers that are elected to be installed by default? So it's really installing on actual hardware, on a broad range of hardware, to spot those edge cases that we simply don't have the ability to sort of cover all of that off. So it's really broad hardware testing. And that's a tall order because people don't want to blow away their systems. So what you can do, of course, is you can have two USB sticks, one with the install media and one as the install target. And so you don't have to blow away your actual system. You can do an install to a USB drive. It may be a little bit slower, but it does exercise all of that hardware capability. So actual installs on actual hardware, definitely right now, with a month to go, because we have had a couple of releases where we found glaring problems days before release, and that gets exciting. I'd like to avoid that this time at all possible.
But then you'd miss out on all that excitement.
Right.
Well, and also you miss out on all that sleep as well, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Well, I have a couple of USBs here sitting in line waiting to do some of the ISO testing. So I'll definitely be doing that this week. But I do want to go back to your video for a second, your streams, Wimpy. I think the biggest thing for me is that people see that you're human, that, you have this image that everybody thinks you are this guy that knows everything. You have everything memorized. You do all of it and you just start typing away and bang, it's done. And all of this stuff, number one, takes a ton of time. It takes resources. Like, for example, I was watching a stream and we were all laughing because you said on the stream, I don't have the Ubuntu Mate color memorized, the HTML color. And I'm like, that is something that I think people need to see. Like, that's the human side of you and of any developer behind the scenes. Like, nobody has it all together. Nobody has everything down where they know all of it. So I think it's really important for people to see that stuff. Not because I want to make fun of you. It has nothing to do with that.
I think it would be inhuman to be able to internalize all of that and just draw on it without, as these streams evolve, so far I've covered things I've been working on recently, sort of a little bit retrospective, or I knew exactly what needed to be done because it's habitual stuff. But there's some things I've got in mind to cover, and I know I'm going to have to learn it as I do it. So it will be learn with me, and I will make mistakes as I go. And last night I made a clattering mistake. I opened Visual Studio Code and it moved to a different workspace, but I couldn't see that because I'm presenting everything on a virtual monitor. So everything went blank on my screen that I was looking at. I can't see that it's actually swiped 4 monitors to the right. And if you watch it back, you may be wondering, well, why is he being so dim about this? I can see the window on the screen in the stream, but I couldn't.
Right.
So this window just disappeared into the ether somewhere. I was very confused. So for the rest of that stream, I was just using Nano in a terminal to open text files and what have you to explain what was going on. And now I know what happened there. I shall be wise to that next time. But, no, I don't have it all buttoned down. Far from it. And, I've written in the description that I'm keen to learn from other people in this process. And I already have, because in one of the streams, I was doing something and I've always hand edited a particular configuration in the Debian packaging, knowing that there's probably a command line to do that automatically. And I saw Rick Mills was in the chat, who's one of the main Kubuntu contributors. He does most of the tech work for Kubuntu. So I actually asked and said, I know there must be a command for this, but I don't know what it is. And sure enough, Rick just typed it into the chat for me, and there it was. And now I will never forget DCH minus capital D.
Wait, did you not know about DCH? Did you not know?
I know about DCH. No, I know about DCH. I didn't know how to change the release series automatically.
Oh, I didn't know that. Oh, brilliant. So I've learned something as well.
Yep.
So yeah, DCH minus capital D changes the release series in the changelog from whatever you've got in there to the current.
I think the point you're making, Rocco, is quite fair. When I did my video on Friday, which was to snap a super simple game, I stumbled across something that was stupidly simple, like really, really simple. And I kind of knew just by looking at the code or looking at the application screenshot that I could probably snap that in about 5 minutes. And I did. But what I want to do is do a more complicated one in another video. And I want to show people just how much I rely on copying, pasting stuff off the internet and how it doesn't come straight out of my head. I'll use Stack Exchange. I'll use other people's GitHub repositories, my own GitHub repositories that I don't memorize. Like I'll have to go and find it. And I think that's how a lot of people work. I think most developers don't just sit there, turn on a computer and start typing, and at the end a fully formed piece of code comes out, like with no Googling, no manuals, no online reading, and just like starting at the top and working to the bottom. Nobody codes like that. But I think people don't realize that.
Yeah, I think
I would the movies.
No. I think a lot of it is knowing where to look to make it more efficient, and knowing, try to recall where you used it last, that sort of thing. I think that's to try to make it more efficient for yourself, but you're still not memorizing the whole thing.
So Dan, you've hit on a great example there, and you don't even need to do that. And this is why I use the fish shell.
Yeah.
Because the fish shell remembers the commands you've executed, where you've executed them, and the time that you executed them. And it develops a insight as to the context of where you are and what you're doing, and commands that you run in sequence. And so consequently, there's a number of complex commands that in the past, years ago, each time I would needed to have used them, I would have had to have referred to my own like personal wiki of these are all of the commands I need to prepare Debian packages. And now I don't do that. I just start typing. I just need to remember what the command names are, and it presents me with the options that I need. And it's just such a huge time saver. It takes some time to invest into switching shells. And I suppose I sound like any person that tells you should be using Vim or Emacs, get over the learning curve and you'll be super efficient. But I do feel like that was time well spent making that switch to fish shell. I feel very slow and disadvantaged when I go onto a fresh system and I haven't set up my fish profile and imported my history.
Yep. I think we all get into a level of comfort in the programs that we use and how we use them. But I wasn't just talking about like mistakes that you guys would make. It's like Alan, your video on Ubuntu Studio, where you go through all of the applications, and you say, I don't know what this application does. How can you not know what that application does? You're Alan Pope. Like that's the kind of thing that I think we need to like break down. That like you're human just like everybody else.
So what you're saying is we need more videos of me looking clueless.
No, it's not about
on
looking
YouTube.
clueless. That's what I'm saying. You're looking at it just like I would look at it.
Right. Turns out I am a human meat bag, much like you, Rocco. There's not actually a lot different between us.
I learned a long time ago, you guys that do video content, just do it like the movies. Type furiously on the keyboard and then for about 10 seconds, then say, I'm in. And everybody thinks you're a hacker. So
Right.
that's all you got to do.
Right. Yep. So I think we definitely need more of that stuff. Just saying. All right. I got a question for you guys, and it's probably been talked about before, but I want your guys' take on it. There was an article that came out, I don't know, this past week, the week before, I don't remember when it came out, about Windows 10 isn't the most vulnerable operating system. It's actually Linux. This was a Tech Radar article, and it went through and it listed Debian as the most vulnerable operating system. I mean, obviously, people need to get their facts straight and read up on things and fact check things. But I want your guys' take on it. Did anybody see this article? Does anybody have an opinion on it?
Yeah, I saw it. I didn't want to do a video on it because everybody's already trashed that article by now because it's clearly
clickbait.
Yeah, I don't know if Microsoft actually paid the guy to write the article, but he couldn't have been a legit journalist because he compared 20 years of Debian and all the bugs that have existed in 20 years on Debian to the bugs that are on Windows 10. Windows 10's only been out, a few years, like 5-6 years. Of course, there's more bugs on Debian in a 20-year span than on Windows in a 5-year span, and Windows closed source. So we don't know all the vulnerabilities. You're comparing apples to oranges because Debian being open source, anybody can audit the code. We're always going to find more bugs in something like Debian than we're going to find in Microsoft because only Microsoft employees can really audit their code. So the whole premise of that article was ridiculous.
Big Pod, go ahead.
All the articles about this research or whatever it was have been based on, I believe, one article, I believe by something VPN something website, and that one first posted the incredibly bad information, which was, while I do think that guy was journalist who made it, he was terribly uninformed, or he just wanted to trash Linux.
I just posted in the chat about the.
He doesn't know statistics and how data works. That could be also a thing. But my opinion is that guy didn't know what he was doing.
Yeah, I just posted the link for both articles in the chat if you want to check them out. Eric, you wanted to say something?
Okay. Unmuted?
Yep.
All right. Well, I want to respond to Wimpy and to you as well, that indeed there is a need to make series to record the things we do in our backend operations, daily operations, to explain what kind of work it entails to make a distro and all the updates that come with it, because there's a lot of back office stuff, like you say, the WordPress website, it's all extra, the YouTube videos, but it's a lot of things that come with it. And it's a good idea to show your human side, because indeed we all make mistakes. And it's from that point on that the video becomes interesting. That people start, he did this, or he did that, or I know the solution. Then it becomes Sherlock Holmes, I always say. Then you have to figure it out. Why is it going wrong? Then my brain is happy. Then it can analyze. And that's great if you can provide us more videos, all of you. You have lots of knowledge. But sometimes you assume other people know what you know. And that's not the case. I mean, I just explained Flameshot, and I thought, well, that's easy. But I got a positive response enormously. Say, I didn't know this tool, great, etc., etc. So we sometimes assume people know things, but we should look at ourselves. What am I doing? Is that maybe interesting for others? And stream it. Great idea from Wimpy. That's my take.
Well, to be honest with
Right.
you, when I started making videos, I wanted them to be perfect. I wanted them to. I didn't know how to edit videos, so I would retake a scene probably 40, 50 times. Because and depending
me
on how
too.
long it was just a, you had, like, I was going through the KDE settings at the time, so I was starting from the beginning to the end, and it was just a nightmare. And because I felt that it had to be perfect, and it never was. And I guess that's what I'm trying to get at, is that we shouldn't think that things have to be perfect, that people are perfect, that there's nothing out there that that's not the way life is. So
well,
to give you an example, the video that I did where all I did was reinstall the OS on my laptop, right? That's really all I did. I just wiped and reinstalled. That's got 27,000 views. On a video where all I'm doing is putting a USB stick in and reinstalling the OS, but it was done in one take. There was no edits. I'm not like mucking about. It's just a human being talking into a microphone while they do something.
Yep.
And it seems people want to watch that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Because it's real, Alan. Because it's
if you're
real.
honest.
You can see it. It comes through that it's real. So anybody else have any takes on the article I mentioned? Come on, Alan. You got to know that this is all truth, facts. That Debian is the most vulnerable operating system out there.
So the thing I didn't see is exactly which software packages they looked at. Are they looking at all CVEs in the entire Debian repository versus the CVEs that are done against Windows, a stock install, which doesn't come with anywhere near as much software as is in the Debian archive? I don't know, but that would be my first question. Yes, the time span is weird that they're comparing 5 years of Windows 10 with decades of Debian. But further, they just put Linux in one of their stats as if but it's not just Linux, is it? It's Linux and Xorg and Firefox and all the other packages that make up Debian. It's not just Linux, but they interchangeably use Linux and the name of a distro. But a distro contains way more than just the kernel. So I think it's probably disingenuous, but I haven't looked at the data, so I don't know. But that would be my first port of call, would be to look
The
at the
guy
data
did
and
not
see.
include, he didn't include Microsoft Office, which we all know has a ton of vulnerabilities. So if he would have just included that, it would have been much more comparable, the numbers.
Right.
So.
Anybody else? Man, this is a hot topic, let me tell you.
I'll say it. It's just clickbait. But another thing, they list out Windows 7 and Windows 10 separately. I mean, how can you compare Windows 7, Windows 10 separately, and then Debian as one whole thing, all versions together? That doesn't make any sense.
Yep.
I think it's very easy. If you install Debian and install Windows 10, you'll see a blue screen of death miles before you'll ever see a blank black screen with a flashing white cursor. Just saying.
Well, all right. So anybody have anything they want to bring up? Going once.
I would just like to say, and I wasn't going to do this because Alan's actually live in the stream, but I actually ran Ubuntu 20.04 for 2 weeks. I'm now kind of back onto 18.04 on all my machines bar 2. And I just want to say what a fantastic job Canonical have done with 20.04, to the point where you actually wonder why you're bothering looking around at the distros, to be honest. It's fantastic. Absolutely. And it's not, you got another month yet, at least, before it's released. And it's already that good. And it really hurts me because Alan's in the stream and he's going to be lauding this on. But Canonical have just done a wonderful job. So I, for one, if I see anybody bashing on Ubuntu, they'll get both barrels because it's absolutely awesome. It really is.
Well, I know Eric can talk about this forever. Adam, I'm sure you can talk about your experience with 2004.
Linux is garbage, and anyone who uses it should feel bad.
Exactly.
Yeah. No, I'm just messing. Yeah, 2004 is pretty amazing. I had a bug with GNOME 336 and other distros where like scaling to 200% would cause my screens to turn off for whatever reason. But I haven't seen that in 2004 yet, but I don't think 2004 is fully on 336 yet. So hopefully that doesn't show up because that would suck.
Yeah.
So
So,
close.
so we're not quite on 336 yet. And some components are still on the RCs. So they're, 335, 91 or 90 plus. But there are some of the work, again, this is a name that's becoming familiar to people, Daniel Van Vogt has been doing, isn't in the master branches of GNOME yet, but we will be carrying those as distro patches. And the last time I looked, those haven't landed. So we should be seeing some improvements in the fluidity of animations and resizing and scaling down to changes in GNOME Shell and GJS in particular. So those are coming any day now. He's down in Australia, so probably tomorrow.
All right, good times.
GNOME 3.36. Has anybody seen any of the? I've watched videos on it. I've watched the feature list on it. Has anybody seen the actual improvements in performance that people are talking about?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, not only performance, but just general quality of life, day-to-day kind of stuff.
Polish.
Yeah, polish. Exactly. Adam and I were talking about this. So he put it in a very succinct way, which is, so I'm talking specifically about like GNOME and Plasma. Plasma has the tools to do anything you would ever want to do, but you have to really work to kind of figure those things out. And so the out of the box experience for Plasma, I think, is not quite as polished, right? Whereas with GNOME, they have a very focused, very specific idea of what their desktop should be. And as you see in 336, they give you an extensions capability now. They have a tool to control extensions. So they recognize that people might want to build from that, but it's such a pleasant experience to use just the standard desktop because it is so polished. I mean, that's just my take on it. And I bounce between the two. And yes, Plasma is unbelievably capable, but it does take, like Rocco, you said this, it might have been a couple months ago now, but I remember you saying something to the effect that Plasma takes time to get set up the way you want it to be. So going in when you're installing Plasma that you have to take some amount of time to get it the way you want it to be.
Yep. So if I install Plasma right now, I know that I will spend at least 20 minutes, a half hour trying to change either shortcuts, menus, or whatever. I will be changing stuff to get it to the way I want it to be. And maybe that's because the settings are there, and maybe some of those settings aren't in GNOME. But that's what happens when I'm on a Plasma desktop, is I end up changing a lot of it. The out-of-the-box experience is not one that I use. If I install a GNOME distribution, I will probably not change hardly anything. I may add 2 extensions to it. Other than that, I will use it the way it is. And
You're saying 20 or 30 minutes, but that's from you have tremendous experience in setting that stuff up.
I know exactly what I want to set up and how to do it.
Right.
But in a GNOME experience, I don't have to change that. So to me, out of the box, if I want to get up and running, I'm going to pick GNOME. I was like you. I was always switching back between KDE and GNOME, back and forth. And if I want to get up and running, I'm definitely going to be picking a GNOME distro.
1910 sort of sealed the deal for me on GNOME. I tried it. I could never quite. I loved the workflow, and I think that's what it comes down to. Is it's so keyboard driven And to me, that's just appealing to be able to switch desktops, move applications, just do all the things I want to do without reaching for the mouse. But I just could never quite get there. There was just always something that didn't work for me. But 1910 just sort of, whatever magic happened in that release, it just pushed me towards GNOME. And ever since then, I've just been, I try Plasma, I Cinnamon, every other desktop, and I'm so comfortable now in GNOME that's when I think of like I just want to sit down and get something done. That's what I want to use. Now I still use Plasma on my workstation because there's some things that you can do with all of the controls that are in there, and it makes sense for that application. And this isn't meant to be critical of Plasma. It's just I think they have their places, and everybody has their preference.
Well, the one thing that shocks me is we've mentioned Plasma so many times, and I haven't seen Michael Tennell yet. But
well, you said his name, so if we say it 2 more times,
any of you KDE guys can jump in and like say something to what we're talking about. But like I said, I mean, I love KDE. I love the power it gives you. I love the choices. Like, it has settings in there that no other desktop environment has.
I think the thing I would say to you is the same thing I say to my 13-year-old son when he's having trouble and he thinks it's the end of the world because he's fallen out with a friend, or his football has got a puncture, or whatever it might be that is a real catastrophe right now. Is tomorrow that will no longer be a problem, and this is a very small proportion of your entire life. In the grand scheme of things, it's a small portion of your life. The reason why I say that is because I installed KDE Plasma 2 years ago, and I ran it for 18 months. I only faffed about with it for the first day or so, and people gave me some tips on things I could change, and I tweaked them around, and then I spent 18 months using it. So that first day or so is a tiny portion of the entire time that I got value out of using that piece of software. And I don't think it's unreasonable to put in that little bit of investment at the front to get it just how you want it, and then just use it. And I didn't have to muck about with it again for 18 months.
Agreed.
I think that's an interesting point. One of the questions I was thinking of asking is, for those of you that do use other operating systems on a semi-frequently basis, how much effort do you put into those to tweaking them to your liking, or do you just go with the defaults?
Defaults. I use Windows. I go with defaults. I might change the color, and that's about it.
Well,
I
have.
Do you tweak? Sorry, just to build on that. And do you tweak your Linux distros?
Yes, depending on what I use. If I use the window manager heavily, no, I also do quite a lot, mainly because I spend most time on Linux, and I tend to use Windows more as a utility, whereas I use Linux more as a part of my life than Windows. Where Windows is just to play games and to do schoolwork.
Okay.
Martin, you hit on a point there. So when I said I wasn't sure about 1910, what it was, so Ubuntu, by adding in the dock, by having application shortcuts, I actually removed the desktop icons. I don't use them, but you've done the work of the things that I would normally do anyway. So in terms of how much do I tweak, the answer on Ubuntu is very little. I do add a couple additional extensions, but you've already given me the experience that I was looking for anyway. So to your point, like and to Rocco's point, do we do these things because we can, or is it because there's a need to do it? And I guess if I just take stock GNOME and just, no window controls, no dock, no application icons, stuff like that, I do have to have those things in there. So if I'm installing it on Arch or something like that, I will add those things back in. But on Ubuntu, it's already the way I need it to be. So I don't know if that gets us any closer, but I do think there is that whole tweak mentality where you get on a rabbit hole, right? I mean, you can drive yourself crazy with things like that, and you find you.
But I'm like Popey. I set this up 8 months ago and did all the plasma things, and I haven't touched it since. It's been, like you said, you put in a few minutes, 20, 30 minutes, and you got it all set.
Well, I still have yet to figure out why that is, at least for me, and I don't know about anybody else, but why that is that you feel the need to customize a KDE install, a plasma install. I don't feel the need to customize a GNOME install, and maybe that's,
right.
I don't know if that's because I'm accepting of certain things, or like I said, because you can. Well, Wimpy, you had asked about the what we do for other operating systems. I have a Windows 10 install on another hard drive, but I only use that for gaming. So I only boot into it to play a game and then boot right out of it. So I don't customize that.
But Rocco, may I just ask, what on earth games do you play on Windows that don't run on Linux?
Call of Duty Modern Warfare.
Is that it? So you're not into Fortnite or
Battlefield 5
PUBG or okay?
And those games,
cheat protection.
because of that anti-cheat, will never, never be available in Linux.
Right, don't forget Rocket Field. Right?
Well, Rocket League is no longer available in Linux either, but you could probably get that running, I would think, through Proton somehow. But
I tweak GNOME, so I find it interesting. I mean, this is just like the diversity of people and people's opinions, and everyone has their own way of working. But when you say, I'm asked on a video, how many people actually use a default stock GNOME shell, and by stock GNOME shell, I don't mean the Ubuntu GNOME shell. I mean the stock upstream GNOME shell. And a few people replied, but not very many. It wasn't like a torrent of people saying, yeah, I use it. It was a couple. And I think some of the design decisions that have been made in upstream GNOME in the stock install are weird and strange and drive me absolutely batty. And I can't, because this is my main machine, there's no way on earth I can sit with those settings as defaults. So I have to change them because it would just drive me insane. The alt tab behavior is crazy. The fact that there's a word on my screen called activities irritates the hell out of me. I don't know why that word is there. I don't want that word there. It's the only word on my entire screen. Why is that word there? And I don't ever press it. So like there's stuff like that I just think are weird decisions that are probably grounded in some, design conversation that was had at some point. But stuff like that I will change. And that's exactly the same as what somebody else would change on KDE, things that don't work for them. But
Alan, do you? So I see the job of distributions as taking upstream and then molding it to their own vision of what a desktop is. So, you mentioned these types of things, and obviously Ubuntu does that with GNOME, and Kubuntu famously does it with Plasma, where I think the Kubuntu implementation of Plasma is the best out there. They turn off single click by default, thank goodness. But you got to get that in at least once every show. Once every show, come on. But so to me, I think it's the distro that kind of gives you that experience, right? It's up to them in a way.
So,
but it's
distros
difficult.
are in a trick.
Yeah,
go on, Hoppy.
I think we're about to say the same thing. Distros take something that someone or a team of people have created. So whether that's GNOME or KDE or whichever team have created, they've created a product, a set of applications and libraries, and it's got a design and a history and a legacy. And then we rip it apart and we bodge some things in there and we replace them things and we rip bits out and add bits and then go, that's what it should look like. And that's basically what you're describing is the changes that a distro makes. And it's a very delicate balance to do that because you have to be mindful of the fact that you're taking something that someone has lovingly made and saying, no, that's not good. I'm going to change that. And then you're shipping that to millions of users.
But isn't this also the attraction of dumping Windows and coming to Linux? The fact that you're not just presented with there's your operating system. It's the same as 10 billion other operating systems use it. So you come over to Linux and you immediately enter into the kid in the sweet shop syndrome, where you can have anything you want, and anything you download, doesn't matter what it is, it's not going to be right. So you've just got to prod it, poke it, and make it your own.
Well, you and I know that, EB.
It's part of the attraction of Linux.
But like Eric said with the theming of Arco, I mean, that out of the box, that initial impression that someone gets, not everybody knows how to do all these things. And, you know, and I'm not speaking just for inexperienced users, even myself, if I just want to get up and running, yes, I know I could tweak Plasma. I know I can add extensions in GNOME. I know I can do all these things, but if I have an experience in mind, if I have a way I'm going to use this system, and there's a distro that has done that work for me, that's the value I see in using that distro, is that they've either given me some sort of tool that makes it easier to administer the system, or they've, you know, given me a layout that makes sense. Look in Manjaro's implementation of GNOME, you know, they've got a layout switcher. Farron does the same thing. That's where I think the distro, so yes, being mindful of not, you know, inadvertently criticizing an upstream project's vision of what something should be. You don't want to just say, no, you're wrong and we're going to do it our way. But you're making those decisions on behalf of the users to make it easier for them to use your system. And so I don't see the contention there necessarily, but
part of the contention is that a developer who's writing for the upstream project, like you take someone who's following the documentation to write a GTK application, and they publish their GTK application that they've lovingly written, and they've tested against all the upstream documentation, and they publish it, and then someone submits a bug and says, hey, yo, on this particular distribution, it looks like this, and on this distribution, it looks like that, and it looks like I can't see the button anymore, or the link doesn't work, when in fact the link is there, but the text is invisible. You know, stuff like that, appearance issues that the upstream developer gets frustrated at because he tested against what the upstream experience is expected to be for him. And because the distro has changed it, that experience, they are now getting bug reports that they didn't expect because they expected it to look the same everywhere.
So as a distro, as a release, do you have to then pick up the slack for those problems, those issues?
Well, part of the problem is the user will likely have filed the bug directly to the upstream. So you're some individual developer, you've created your calorie counting application or whatever it is, and you publish it and it's awesome, and you've only tested it against Adwaita on stock GNOME, and the largest number of users who are using that application are actually on a different distro, whichever one it is, it doesn't matter, and they're using a different theme and a tweaked desktop, and so what you expected, you know, and so the users will go straight to that developer because the developer will put how to get to my bug tracker in the about box. And so distributions can't sit in between that, or they can if they can intercept that message somehow, but often they won't see it. And so the developer just gets frustrated and blames the distro. And that has happened. You've seen websites like, you know, don't theme my apps and stuff like that, where people get, and it's frustration because they're having their time consumed trying to reply to bugs that they don't believe are actually bugs.
Well, I would like to clarify something. You had mentioned that stock install, and when I say when I install GNOME, I don't have to set it up. I'm speaking of Pop! OS or regular Ubuntu. I'm not speaking of stock GNOME. That would be that would be another whole issue there. Aris, you wanted to say something?
Yes, I usually use Plasma, but over the past few weeks, maybe going on a month, I've been using Ubuntu and Ubuntu 1910, and I have some pain points with no, not really Ubuntu, but GNOME. Some of them have been fixed. Like people talk about how intuitive everything is with GNOME, but I don't feel that's actually true. I think you start using GNOME and then you start realizing what the workflow is, what GNOME tries to do. But some things for me fall apart. Like the thing I like about Plasma is that you can set up like different workspaces and you can send things to different workspaces. Like let's say I think GNOME has 4 workspaces you can have, and you can send Windows to those 4 workspaces. But I like having like 6 workspaces, and I'm not even sure how you add that to GNOME. I guess I need an extension for that. And then extensions, I mean, everybody talks about extensions, but extensions don't feel very intuitive how to install them on GNOME. I know you got to, a lot of distros don't even have tweaks installed by default. I know that's improved in 336, but that wasn't always like that. Mm-hmm. And like passwords, when you set up your Wi-Fi, you can't see your password. Now, I like using a big giant password because I'm only going to set the password once. I'm never going to change it pretty much. And that's like the same way the iOS is. There's no way to see your password. So it's really, if you have a complicated password, it's hard to set up that way. And now that they actually fixed it in 336. So 336, it brings a lot of nice things to it. But what I do love about GNOME is like the clock. I always set up my clock the way GNOME has in the middle. And I like the font rendering. That's probably the number one reason why I'm using GNOME now, because the font rendering is actually better. But yeah, there are a lot of little things like the tray icon. Like, why can't I move those things? Like, I don't need everything there. Like I have like the font a little bit bigger, and now showing me the accessibility icon. Like, I don't need to see that. Why do I need to see that? I understand why it's there, but it gets to me sometimes.
Well, I think in every desktop environment, you're going to have to make concessions on certain things because certain items you won't be able to change. Eric Londo in chat had mentioned, and I know Tyler Brown is the same way. I am the same way. When I install a Plasma desktop, I make it look like Unity, or GNOME now looks kind of like Unity used to. So that's the workflow that I'm used to. So that's what I end up doing to a new Plasma install, is making it look like that. Wimpy, you wanted to say something before.
I think Alan covered most of it. The subtlety that I was going to introduce is that if GNOME have a design language and a design direction that they want to pursue, and they have innovations in the user interface, then as a distro with a large audience base, we do a disservice to them pursuing what they want to achieve if we change it. So therefore, when we choose to make changes to GNOME, we have to do so sensitively to their aspirations and also to best serve our users. So there's a very careful balance that has to be struck there.
Yep. Eric Dubois, you wanted to say something.
Yes, thank you. Well, we're talking about design and tweaking and all that, and that's actually, well, one of the major goals in our distro, right? And when I go back like even 4 or 5 years time, I was a Linux Mint user, like version 16 or so. I don't know how long a time ago it was, but every time I installed Linux Mint and I loved it, so great distro. But what we all do is like somebody said, rip things out and put things in, basically. So we don't want that, we do want this, we don't want that, and we install stuff. And I started learning scripting that way. Install me this, install me that, add me this. And from those development years or just user years, right? So me being a single user writing scripts to improve Linux Mint, I got great results. People saying, I want to have these scripts, right? Because it makes the distro nice, because out of the box. And that's a personal opinion, right? To everybody his own taste. And you can't make a distro for everybody. So the second point then happens on Arco Linux. We have now this tweak tool, and it's going to be, the tool's going to be, well, a central hub. And one of the things we have created already, and the awesome desktop is ready to try it out. At the awesome desktop, we have a theme to just switch 1, 2, 3, choose your theme, rather than go into the code and say this and that, Lua code, right? one mistake, boom, doesn't work anymore. So now we have a tool that just lets you switch themes. That's gonna be interesting because the way we like our distro to be is not the way everybody wants it to be. So if we can provide different tastes, a dark one, a light one, a blue one, a green one, I don't know, things, so that people say, whoa, I've only to choose a drop down, say apply, up, and everything changes. So that's in the pipeline. It's already there for Awesome. It's already there for i3, but we have more tiling window managers. So we're going to continue that way. So that's one thing. You have an ISO, and a desktop, and a tweak tool, immediately change. The next thing is if you want to have a theme or an operating system that looks good, then you go to Arco Linux B. In that case, you build it and you decide, I want to have that theme, that icon, and they have less work afterwards. That's another option, to have an operating system you like, right? Because there's so many people out there. So you decide what goes on the ISO, how it's going to look. And the last thing is Carly, right? So no, actually there's one in between. So the spin-offs. The spin-off is actually making your themes as a repo, as a package, and adding that to the ISO. And then we have the last one, that's Carly. It's really from A till Z. So I do think in terms of theming and tweaking, well, that's a major point for us. It's an important aspect of our operating system.
Yep.
That's me out.
All right, Joe, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, I just actually wanted to commend Alan for what he just said, because I honestly did not think about it that for as long as I've been using Linux, and we all say like EB just said too, you know, the beauty of this is you can customize it, you can do what you want, and it's fantastic. But I honestly, for as long as I've been using this, had never really thought, and I haven't filed a bunch of bug reports, but I never thought about the ramifications of that, of sending a bug report for something that has been modified or tweaked or whatever, and what that would potentially do on the developing end. The other thing I just wanted to comment on was talking about the clock in the middle of that. I tried to move it. I have the panel at the top in my Mint here too, and the fonts are a little smaller, and if I want to make them bigger, then of course the icons get bigger, which I don't like. The problem I run into, and I guess I'm only saying this as an FYI maybe to think about, is as computer tech gets more developed, like the screens we have and the bezels get paper thin, there maybe keep in mind the possibility of a little bit more of a space down from that, you know, for the time and date up in the middle. Because what happens is, like, now I've got a webcam here and it doesn't hang down far, but the way I have it set up, it's just enough to block part of that date and time on here if I want to keep it in the middle on here. And that was just a thought. And these are things you don't always think about, I think, from both directions, you know, because it's almost impossible, I would think, for developers to keep up on every bit of hardware, every bit of tech and things like that that comes out that's forever changing. So feedback, like something as simple as this, may seem insignificant, but it is something to think about too when you want on how your use cases. But yeah, so that's all I wanted to comment on for now.
Yep, I have the same issue with the webcam, so I had to move it over just past the clock so I can see the clock. Nate, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, can you hear me okay, or am I too quiet?
You're a little quiet, dude.
No? Still good?
Okay, go ahead.
All right. So I kept hearing the KDE talk, KDE or Plasma or whatever, and I'm a Plasma user. It's what I like. I've tried virtually every other desktop, and I'm just, you know, they just don't suit me as well. And I think the reason is even on my Plasma setup, it's a moving target constantly. I'll be satisfied with it for a few months, and then I have to tweak or change something else to accommodate a new perceived need. Yeah, I'm not going to say really need it, because I mean I can use anything, but it's so I think the idea of having a desktop that suits all my needs is an impossible task. But I realize I am kind of an edge case there, because no one desktop in its default setting will ever do everything I want it to do.
Well, let me
So
ask you,
the-
Nate, how long do you spend when you just install your fresh install of OpenSUSE KDE? How long do you spend tweaking it?
Oh, not long at all. Maybe 10 minutes, because I export the information I need to import to the next one. So I just copy it over.
So you do it the easy way. Cheat.
Yeah, I'm lazy. I'm as lazy as it comes. So, but the nice thing is, though, I have the ability to adjust without extensions or having to dig deep into the code to adjust Plasma to be what it is that I need for what suits me. And also, although I'm running Plasma on everything, I find that the setups are slightly different based on the machine and what I'm doing with it. And I don't. I'm sure I can get it on any other desktop, but I don't know how I would accomplish that as easily. So that's my take on why I'm a Plasma fanboy, and Michael's surrogate, since he's not here.
Well, I don't think the point of the conversation was to slight any DE over the other. I think.
Oh
it was
no, I didn't
more,
think it was that at all.
Yeah, it was more to just give our views of how we look at things and why maybe we, as Eric had said before, why we make these changes that we do to the desktop. So, Jill, did you want to get in on this?
You're being requested in chat, so you have no choice. Uh-oh. She's muted. Unmute her, Rocco.
Working on it.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, so Wimpy, I just want to tell you, I'm still rocking Ubuntu Mate 1910, and I'm loving it. I'm using it on my broadcasting rig, and this is kind of the first time I'm using a non-LTS on my broadcasting rig. So, and I've done very little to Classic GNOME, because all your adjustments were just perfect for me, including all the game enhancements with DRI3 and whatnot to make the Mesa drivers perform even better.
Well, first of all, thank you for the kind words. Victor Carrar is the guy behind all of the work regarding DRI and Marco and the improvements that come there,
Yeah.
and he's been plugging away at that steadily for a couple of years now. And if you're happy with 1910, the good news is that really 1910 was our big push for the LTS. So for 2004, Ubuntu Mate is new Mate on top of all of those improvements. So we've not made too many widespread changes because we hit a sweet spot with 1910 and it's a good time not to break it. So yeah,
Yes.
business as usual for 2004.
It's awesome. I've even been using Magnus because that really helps me with my vision issues.
Yeah, I've heard you talk about that a couple of times, and
Yeah.
it's lovely to hear actual feedback about somebody sees some value in that stuff. It's often overlooked, and yeah, it's a much needed bit of software. My interest in that comes from my cousin who is visually impaired, so that's why I've
Nice.
always paid some attention to that.
Oh, great, Wimpy. And I missed you and Popey at scale tremendously.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Unfortunately,
Event
we were
smash.
never able to make
Yeah.
that one, and now we're not able to make anything. We're
Yes.
embargoed, I think, from
Yes.
everywhere now.
Well, you guys had fun at your sprint in Frankfurt, so that looked like it was
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah, it was good fun.
So speaking of, Jill, we need a scale update.
Yes. So it was wonderful, despite everything going on in the world and the bad virus out there. We still had normally we have over 5,000 people show up, but we still had 3,500. So that was still a really good number. And everyone was heeding the warnings. Those that had the colds and flus did not show up, and which was wonderful because none of us got the con flu as a result of it. And everyone was being so careful using sanitizer, and I wash my hands all the time anyways, but we were just doing fist bumps and touching each other's shoulders, but a few of us still had to hug, of course. But it was really wonderful despite that. I had a really great time with El Marquez and Neritsy Sanchez and Elizabeth K. Joseph. So it was
Yep.
really it was, even though some of the core people weren't there, we still had this. It had a wonderful community feel because it was mostly just the local community, and so it felt like a scale like 6 or 7 years ago. So it had a really family feel to it, and that made it a lot of fun. And the other thing that was really cool, I was able to go to a few of the talks this time because I'm so busy doing, doing broadcasting with Linux Gamecast, doing my interviews, running the Linux Chick-fil-A booth, helping out with the Lutris booth, running the Airbnb so for LGC. And but I was able to go to some talks, including Elle's talk on her confessions of of a sysadmin, which was wonderful. But what was really, really cool is a lot of people had to count who had canceled talks, and there was probably about half the talks were canceled. People at the last minute came in and did those talks. Last minute came in, like the whole Kubernetes track was going to be canceled, and then people just said, "Okay, I'll do that talk." So apparently that went beautifully. So that was really good to hear.
Well, I was able to watch that L's talk on the sysadmin thing,
Yes.
and I've seen it before, but
Yeah.
it's always awesome to see it again. Like the way
Yes.
she delivers it and the information inside what she's trying to present to people is so important. And I thought it was awesome for the fifth time I've seen it now. So,
Yes. And this was the first time doing it alone, like
yep.
in front of a big group. So she did a great job.
Well, the other thing too is, in the beginning she had mic issues where the mic wasn't,
Yes.
staying on or whatever. She ended up going with a single mic, a handheld
Yeah.
mic, and
Yes.
but she did it all smoothly. She
Yeah.
took it in stride, went through it, and once that was over, the talk was great.
Yeah.
So.
Definitely.
Jill mentioned Nuritsi Sanchez and Liz
Yes.
Joseph. Both of them were interviewed recently on the Brunch with Brent
Brunch.
podcast. I've put the links in the chat. So
Very
Yay.
if you
good.
want to get to know them, they're both in there.
Yeah, they were. Those are great brunches too. Some of my favorites.
All right. Before we go off on that topic, I do want to go back to a comment that Terry Love had mentioned, and about the theming and about changing things. He's mentioned this group is a specialist bunch, meaning us, them, people in chat. Most users like the idea of modding and theming. I mean, and I guess to that point, he is kind of right. Do they want to devote the time to learning and doing it and fixing what they may break? So when I came to Linux, I did want to change things. I did want to mod things. That was part of the reason why I came. I don't know if there's still a bunch of people switching for that reason, but I think that's one of the greatest things that we have the ability to do. Anything else?
It is. When I first came to Linux, admittedly it was a long time ago and it wasn't as refined as it is today, but I spent the majority of my early years of Linux just tinkering with things, and it took years for me to realize I wasn't actually getting any value out of my computers by using them for anything useful, because I was just perpetually tinkering with configuration and dot files and themes and patching the way things worked and looked and all the rest of it. And I think at some point you need to let that go a little bit and just use your computer to actually get stuff done. And maybe the thing you want to get done is play some games. Maybe it's record a podcast. Maybe it's live stream. Maybe it's develop some software. But I think, if you're perpetually stuck in tinkering, are you really getting any value out of that experience?
I totally agree.
Yeah.
That again is why I'm running GNOME right now, is because I don't.
But surely, or is this? Please correct me, anybody and everybody. Is this oversimplifying it? If you want to produce an operating system, an application, or whatever, and you want the world to use it how you've envisaged it, surely you make that piece of software closed source, so nobody can change it. If you're going to Well, if you're going to release an operating system or an application that's open source and anybody can do anything they like with it, how can you perceive that people will only use it a single way?
Because if you're ethically minded to make your product open source, free software, whatever you want to call it, right? And you give your product a name, like, you know, Alan's Amazing Calorie Counter, whatever it's called, then it's perfectly fine for someone to take that, remix it, use it as a base for some other application, learn from it, and create a whole new application that uses lumps of the code that I wrote, right? But I think the problem comes about when someone takes Alan's Amazing Calorie Counter, repackages it in such a way that it looks different, but still says it's Alan's Calorie Counter application. That's the problem.
Okay,
And
yeah,
while
fine, I get
morally that's okay to do, and legally by the license it's all right to do it, but that's where you get into sticky area, is when you repackage stuff so that it looks or behaves differently, but still give it the same name. Like, look at how litigious Mozilla have been in the past by protecting the Firefox brand name. Like, you can't make something and call it Firefox unless it really is Firefox. And I think it's the same kind of thing, even though it's free software. Like,
Yep. I think that, you know, you had mentioned about the developers. I think a lot of times we don't think before we say things or do things, especially when talking about applications on a certain distro that maybe, you know, weren't designed on that distro. And I think if we just sit back and maybe, like I said, just think a little bit before we say something, or maybe even send that email or report that bug, to make sure that it's, at least on our part, maybe not, you know, new users aren't going to do that, but on our part, because of the group we're in, I think we should give it a little bit more thought put into how we report things and what we say, because they have long lasting effects on people.
Also, the comment that triggered you to ask this question, I think, was in the chat, and the assertion was that people, the majority, I think that you said the majority of people want to tinker around with the look and feel, right? I would challenge anyone to have any stats on that, right? I don't think anyone's got any evidence that either supports or suggests that's not true. We can all talk from our own experience, and probably everyone in this chat fiddles with the look and feel of their system. But what I would challenge you to do is, next time you're in a place which has people you don't know, strangers, with their own laptops or their own desktops, just cast an eye over what it looks like and see how close to a stock experience. And they'll almost certainly be Windows or Mac. Doesn't matter, right? Have a look and see how close that is to a stock experience. How much do people really change their user interface? Or do they just turn the thing on, launch the application they want to launch, and get on and do their job? My feeling when I see people using systems on the train, when I go into the London office, I spy, I look over people's shoulder, I look at their systems, because I want to know what people are using. What's the newest application people are using? How are people tricking out their machine? And I think everyone could have a go at doing this, not like looking at what people are doing, like the words that they've got on the screen, but just get an idea for what do people do. And I think you'd be surprised that most people take a stock experience and just open applications and do their job.
Alan, I totally agree with you on that statement. Most people, but Linux isn't really aimed at most people, is it? It's aimed at the enthusiast, the nerd, the person whose greenhouse is now a man cave.
No.
Well, and so this takes me back though to this point I was making about the distro and the role that they play. So if people aren't going to change things, that's where I think that the downstream experience of the distro and the way they package it, the way they present it, is so important. And yes, we can try to be sensitive that the upstream developer has put time and effort into what they believe is their ideal. But realistically, as we've all said here, in some cases that's not true. And I think it's it's within the within the rights of a distro to make those kinds of changes on behalf of their users. So
and I'm dare betting that most of the people's shoulders that Alan look over are either running Windows XP, Windows 7, Windows 10, or Apple Mac. Well, other than the wallpaper, what are you going to change on that?
Well, but I think his point, and I'm not trying to speak for him, is that Ubuntu, I would guess that if they had the information, that the vast majority of people that are using Ubuntu in whatever application they are just using it the way it is. They're probably not making a lot of change. Then maybe they'll change the wallpaper,
So you can spot this whenever someone publishes an article or an image online which is Ubuntu in the wild, like, and you see, like, okay, there's systems that have failed and that show you a grub boot screen or the desktop or some error message, or like, those aside, I'm talking about when you see Mercedes' latest video about their autonomous car, and there'll be an engineer sat in the front and the laptop is running Ubuntu, right? That kind of video. Or the people who are looking at the next black hole, the scientists who are sat there and they've got a laptop, it's got Ubuntu, and it's a stock desktop, right? If you look at those kind of people, they're doing a job, they're doing work, and they've got a stock experience. I think a lot of people do that, but I don't have the data. I'm just talking anecdotally about the people I see on the train who do generally have a stock experience.
Yeah, but again, I'm sorry, I just could bring you back, Alan, to the differentiation between a user and an enthusiast, and the two are totally different beasts.
Right, but we're not necessarily aimed at the enthusiast.
I disagree. I think you're aimed at a very broad market, as is all Linux distros. We want everybody from a cold, hard noob who will never do anything than hit the on key to somebody who's an absolute app developer wizard who is currently unhappy with Microsoft and wants to migrate to a Linux. Great.
No, for the record, I've been tweaking mine the whole time we've been talking. You guys been talking. I've been playing with my taskbar since Rocco mentioned the spacer. Just for the record.
Let me ask you guys this question, because I install Linux on friends and family computers all the time over many, many years. And rarely do they bring the machines back because they just work. But occasionally I will see them and this laptop that I installed Ubuntu or whatever, 2-3 years ago. And it looks exactly the same as the day I installed it.
Yep.
Like 9 times out of 10. They haven't changed a thing, not even the wallpaper.
And that's not a Linux thing.
Go ahead, Eric.
I was just going to say, that's not a Linux thing. That's just a 95% of computer users, right? They, like I said, they may change the wallpaper. They're never going to touch anything else.
Yep. Yeah, there's a section of people that are enthusiasts who want to change things, but that's a small portion of the people that actually use Linux, I think. So
I've never had somebody, I put Linux on their computer, bring it back to me, and it had a different DE or window manager ever. Like, they never go to that extreme. It might have a different wallpaper. Maybe they change the icon set. But other than that, it's pretty much the same.
And that's stuff they're only going to do if you put it in front of them, right? They're not going to go dig looking for settings. So if you said,
or if they're an enthusiast, if they're a proper nerd, whereas your average normal who just wants to be able to print out invoices and read their email, the stuff that's on the desktop and the icons and the things along the top are irrelevant. They're just a means for me to launch my invoicing application. They're just a means for me to get to my email. Once I'm in my email, I don't give a monkeys about anything else on the screen at all.
Well, I can just go and look at my family members that I've installed Linux on. And my dad, he will definitely tweak things because he likes doing that. But everybody else just runs it exactly the way it's on there. It's just
that's why that solid experience, that solid initial presentation by the distro gives that person what they need. And if, to Alan's point, they never touch anything, to EB's point, if they want to learn from there, like your dad didn't know how to do any of that to start with, but then he took the initiative and said, well, what can I change in here? And I'm sure now, because he's had that experience, he wouldn't enjoy
definitely not
an operating system that wouldn't let him do that, right?
No, definitely not. He would not enjoy that at all. I can say that.
What operating system is your dad running these days, Rocco?
Well, right now, he is on Peppermint. But he asked me to put Ubuntu Mate back on the machine. And I asked him if he would wait until April when 2004 releases before we put it back on. Otherwise, we'd be reinstalling it again in a month. So
I see the check must have arrived, in which case then.
Yeah, you got it.
It's an interesting business model you have there, Martin, where you pay people to use your operating system.
That's it.
It doesn't scale well.
It was perfect timing, though, because that's exactly, like I said, probably 2 weeks ago, he asked me to put Mate back on. So
This, I was going to say, Rocco, the thing is 2004 is good enough to use as a daily.
Well, it is, but, like, if something would go wrong, it's more of a, if something would go wrong, there's a lot more involved on time-wise on my end that I may not have time to do.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I wouldn't right now. I mean,
No, today is not the day. Today is not
a
the
bad day.
So I definitely will be putting it on,
talking,
but not today. Well, you got
we've been talking. Whilst we've been talking, Popey and I have been watching the fires burning. So yeah, there's a problem right now. You don't want to install today.
Okay.
Or update. If you've got 2004 installed, don't update today.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Good tip.
All right. I would love to keep the chat going, but we are already past time. So that's all the time we have for this week. But everybody gets the last word. Dan Simmons.
Thank you, Rocco. As always, great conversation. Love having the Europe edition to get to interact with all of the other folks that don't normally make it to the regular biddles. So that's also pretty great. So thank you.
Bill, last word.
Wimpy, where is my check is what I'd like to know. So, I mean, I don't understand this thing of not installing it today. I've already done 3 installs while we've been talking on the show for ISO testing. But just to go back to what you were saying, Rocco and Jill, about Elle and Elizabeth, they also happen to appear on a show that Rocco does, episodes 6 and 7 of Linux Spotlight. So those are things that maybe you should take some time and listen to as well.
Who could possibly have introduced these two ladies to
I don't know.
both Rocco and Brent? Who could possibly have done that?
Checks in the mail.
Yeah.
Tony, last word.
Yeah, thanks for doing the European edition, Rocco. It's even earlier this week because your clock's changed and ours didn't. I'm glad to see that you're better and you're able to be here this week. Missed you last week. Interesting conversation. I'm running 1910 Ubuntu at the moment. I have tried 2004, but I did run into a few problems. So I went back to 1910, but I'm looking forward to the release. I'm going to give it a try when it comes out. Take care, everyone. Till next time. And I will probably see you later, Rocco.
Dig it. Eris, last word.
Thank you very much for the stream, everybody who makes this possible. I would like to say, please wash your hands. Please try to avoid people as much as possible. Just because you don't have any symptoms it doesn't mean you have the disease. And this is not so much for everybody's safety. Like some people say they're young and everything, but this is because there are people who are very vulnerable to this disease that could catch it. And you could be a carrier without knowing. So please wash your hands for 20 seconds at least.
Dig it. Jill, last word.
Aw. And thank you again, Rocco. And I'm so sorry you're still sick. It's been a couple weeks.
It's all good.
So, but you're doing better now. Thank goodness. And thank you to my Biddle community. I had missed you guys all last month because I had the flu, but I got better for scale. Thank goodness. And look forward to watching tonight's show later on. And I have lots of good content coming from Scale at Linux Gamecast. So stay tuned.
Awesome. EB, last word.
Just some thanks, really. Thanks to you, Rocco, for doing this Euro version. Very, very grateful. It's great job to you and everybody else that helps you. Massive shout out to Canonical for what I think will be an awesome 2004 release. Huge shout out to Eric Dubois for all his hard work. Remember, Eric, you know, he's doing all this content as well as the distros. Fantastic job. Can't sing Eric's praises enough. But most of all, thanks to everybody in the chat, because in my opinion, it's still the best community on the planet, bar none.
Yeah.
So thanks, everybody. Take care. Please be careful with this virus. Look after your loved ones. Enjoy your Linux. And just enjoy yourself as much as possible.
Oh, we love you, EB.
Yes, we do.
Eric, last word.
Well, thanks for doing this, Rocco.
Well, other Eric.
I'm sorry.
It's confusing.
Eric Adams, last word. My bad.
So I'll echo what Dan said. I really enjoy the Europe edition. You know, this to me just has a slightly different flavor than the normal Biddle, and it's not a criticism either way. It's I just really enjoy this group, and it's faces we don't always get to see and talk to, and thanks to Eric Dubois for the wonderful work on Arco and giving people a way to learn in a real way, a guided way, what Linux is and how to use it and get the most out of it. And with that, everybody have a great week. And I'll see you guys in a month.
Big Pod, last word.
Since school is out for us here, I don't have anything to do next week, so working a lot on my video about Gentoo. Even got myself a loaner capture device so I can capture the screen. But I will also try to actually take some time and look at Arco Linux for next week.
Well, if you get extra time, Big Pod, you could always do some ISO testing.
I just installed on the device that will have Gentoo later on. I have installed the 2004, so for me it works.
Yay!
Big, don't update. Just saying, dude.
I believe
Popey.
it's doing it right now.
Popey, last word, brother.
Thank you, Rocco, for doing these Europe editions. It's much appreciated. I don't have to keep the family awake at 1 a.m. So I've been learning some new things over the last week or so from my good friend Martin Wimpress, and I would recommend everyone subscribe to his channel because you too might learn new things from him. So I've pasted the link to Martin's channel in the chat.
Perfect.
Thanks, guys.
Paul, last
Thank you
word.
very much.
Yeah, great show tonight. Glad to see everybody from Europe overseas there. I don't know if you guys remember last week I was having a problem with my modem and router. So picked me up a new one. And it's been working great.
Nice. I love it.
So no more dropping off during the middle of the stream. So thanks, everybody.
All right, Eric Dubois, last word.
Yes, thank you for the invite. And remember when you asked, what do you need? What do you want to have? What help can you get or need? Well, there's one thing I've been wondering if that's possible at all. And I do see some co-developers there in the chat. If we would come together in some kind of way on Telegram, Discord, anyway, to get our heads around topics we have on Calamars, we're facing it together, and everybody's doing it in their little islands and figuring it out, and rather putting our brains together and say, okay, that's how to solve it. That would be great if we could get together as ISO builders. And well, thank you again for the invite. Greetings to my team, which are there as well in the chat. And as last message, learn, have fun, and enjoy. That's our motto. And thanks.
Very nice. Whippy, last word.
Thanks very much for doing these European sessions, and thanks to Popey for reminding me that it was an hour earlier than I thought it was going to be on, so I was actually able to turn up in time. And it's lovely to see you all, your happy smiling faces and your enthusiasm for desktop Linux. It's infectious and one of those little things that keeps the motivation levels up. So thank you all for turning up and saying nice things about, or not just the projects I work on, but the projects that are going on throughout the Linux community. It's good to have some objective discussion.
Yep. DT, last word.
Well, thanks for having me, Rocco. I actually didn't know you were doing this early edition today. I just happened to get the notification, and luckily I was in front of my computer. I wasn't working. So I know I hadn't been on in a little bit, but I do want to thank Eric Dubois for my personal favorite Linux distribution, Arco Linux. For those of you that haven't tried Arco, but you're interested in i3 or Awesome Window Manager or BSPWM, I think he makes the best editions of those particular window managers. Also, it's the only distribution I know of that ships with Qtile and Xmonad. No other distribution ships with pre-configured Qtile or Xmonad, so big props to that. That's all I got.
Very nice. Joe, last word.
Well, first of all, I'm glad to see that you're at least feeling better, Rocco. I was a bit concerned about you, as everybody else. We've all had our fair share, I think, in taking turns with the illnesses going around. To Alan, I am very much enjoying your series of videos you've been putting out. No matter how critical you are of yourself with them being not so perfect, I learn something every time. And to Wimpy, I did join yours yesterday after I caught the tail end of your live stream. So I'm looking forward to seeing what else you're coming out. And of course, all my other friends who are content providers, I always try to support whenever I can. There's one note on the virus stuff. I think, to Eris's point, I think we should be doing that anyway, not when there's just an emergency situation. It's just good practice, consideration of others, and just, it's to be kind to others. It's the same thing. It's just be considerate of others, and, just do the things that you should do for yourself anyway, and everybody will get along just fine. But thank you again for allowing me. I'm glad I caught the tail end of this, because my grandson, the alarm went off. We happened to be in Rockford at Portillo's, and my alarm went off. He goes, "What's that for, Papa?" And I says, "That's for the live stream." He saw the one that he says, "I always ask you if they could see me," because he'll walk in. If I'm not on the stream and I have it on, try to watch you, he will say, "Can they see me?" Because he's been on a couple of times. So yep. I think it's awesome. He even knows who you guys are and gals. But thank you.
All right, Nate, last word.
I think what I learned today was if I'm around Alan Pope and my computer's open, he's going to be rubbernecking over on my screen to see what I'm doing. Or at least how it looks.
Yes, I will. Yes.
All right. Awesome. All right. I just want to thank you again.
The struggle is real.
There's a meme in the works.
All right. I love it. I thank you again for having the stream. I'll see you later on tonight. And I thank you, Eric Dubois, for all the work you've done on Arco Linux. I didn't get my input on it, but thank you very much. And I look forward to next time.
All right, that's going to wrap it up for this special edition of Biddle Europe. I do want to echo everybody's take on Eric. I want to thank you so much for all of the hard work that you put in, not just to the distro, but to the videos that you put out there and the whole team. I want to extend our thanks to the whole team for helping put out a great distro that people can learn from. So I appreciate that. Check out Popey and Wimpy streams for their live stuff. It's excellent. Other than that, we're going to see you in a couple hours at 8 p.m. EDT. So join us then. But until then, long live Linux.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Love you guys.
Hi.